today. It was the High Court's final decision day of the week, upholding provisions of a 1994 law that bans people under domestic violence restraining orders from carrying guns. So again, domestic abusers will not be allowed to possess guns. The decision was backed by the court's 3 liberal justices, and then also 5 of the 6 conservative justices. I believe it was Clarence Thomas who was the sole dissent there. Judicial analyst here at Newsmax, Judge Andrew Napolitano, will be joining us later with his own legal analysis, so you don't want to miss that.
But first, we'll get right to our national correspondent, Alana Austin, live in front of the Supreme Court building. With these latest rulings, she's been watching this very closely. We did expect that presidential immunity decision that affects Trump, the D.C. case that he's facing there, to come down today. We did not see that, but we did see this decision on domestic abusers and owning guns. Alana.
Hi, good morning, Emma and Sean. Well, as you mentioned there were several cases that came down, but not the big ones about presidential immunity or January 6th. However, there was one major significant decision, and that was about gun rights and gun control. Now, in the decision that just came down, the Rahimi one, we had been following that one because it involves alleged domestic abusers and their gun rights. So there is a federal law that has now been upheld in an 8-1 ruling by the court, the opinion being issued here by Chief Justice John Roberts. And in that, he is essentially saying that the federal government has a history, traditions of restrictions. And in this case, he says that those individuals in America, they do pose some type of a physical threat to the safety of others, whether it be their intimate partners, exes, children, just in a volatile situation that they believe it is valid for this federal law to remain in effect. And this is a bit of a clarification ruling as well, because there had been gun control groups that were unhappy with the High Court's recent rulings. There were landmark decisions involving upholding firearms rights in Heller and in Bruin. And so Chief Justice John Roberts, in this opinion, acknowledged, as he put it, misunderstandings about where the court is coming from. On the flip side of this, the lone dissent here was Justice Clarence Thomas, and he explains his problem with this decision. The majority of the court, he is in disagreement here. And the reason, he says, is there's not a criminal record. There's no conviction that would strip a person of their gun rights in this particular situation and case. And in my research, Sean and Emma, I had been listening in on what gun rights groups had been saying here, and they feel there has been a misunderstanding about this case. They don't necessarily defend the guy, Zaki Rahimi, who had been accused of a slew of violent crimes, abuse against his girlfriend. However, they've brought up an important point here that people subject to protective orders, it can happen in custody battles, in messy divorce proceedings. Perhaps the court or the judge, they could issue a blanket order on both parties. So some of these gun rights groups are not going to be happy with this decision, as they argue an innocent, vulnerable person looking to have a firearm to defend themselves, if they're going through a difficult breakup and they are afraid for their lives, well, now they could be swept up into this and disarmed as well. Back to you, Emma and Sean.